Hi fellow crafters. Today I'm going to show you the step front panel fun fold technique. It looks super complicated, but it's really easy, and that should remain our secret, right? I'm going to be using the Forever Fern stamp set and Forever Flourishing dies, and a phrase from the Best Year stamp set. My card is going to be a birthday card, but you can change this up to match any occasion you want. Be sure to watch all the way through my video for my bonus tips and design ideas, and I'll also show you a second idea for a different occasion. Are you ready to get started? Hey everyone, I'm Terri and I'm nuts about stamping. I love sharing techniques and project ideas for rubber stamping, paper crafting, and scrapbooking with you each week. Be sure to hit that red subscribe button and the bell beside it so that you'll be the first to be notified when my next video goes live. Now let's have some fun folding, shall we? I want to start off by creating an element from my card using the Forever Fern stamp set and the Forever Flourishing dies. And then I'm going to use the stamp set to create most of the layers that I'm going to be using. So I have a piece of basic white cardstock, and I've got one of the larger ferns from the stamp set, and I'm going to ink it up using my soft succulent ink. I'm going to then stamp it down and then die cut it out. Okay, and you can see from the ink on the image and then onto the paper, this photorealistic kind of distinctive look that this kind of stamp set creates. So I'm going to bring in my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine and die cut the fern out. And I will then set it aside, and we're going to use it as an element on the front of the card. Back in a moment. The next step is to create a layer of basic white for my card. And I'm going to use 3 of the stamps from the Forever Fern stamp set. I'm going to reuse this large fern, and then I have one of the smaller ones. And then for filler, I'm going to use this sort of splatter stamp. So I'm going to start off by using Evening Evergreen. And let me bring in a scrap piece because I'm going to be stamping over the edges of this layer. So I always save a scrap piece of my grid paper that can just get messy with a bunch of stamps and ink, and no problem. So I'm going to ink it up. And for this particular larger stamp, I'm not going to stamp a lot of them. And I want to rotate my paper so that I have this sort of movement off the paper, which is more visually pleasing. So that was Evening Evergreen. I'm then going to use my soft succulent for the smaller stamp. Now the reason that I'm using lots of green is that I know the person that's going to get this birthday card from me, and she loves greens. She was born in the fall, she wears a lot of green, her home decor has a lot of green, so I chose these colors to match the preferences of my friend. And then the last thing I'm going to do is use Sahara sand, and I'm going to ink up the splatter, and I'm just going to fill all of the remaining white spaces by rotating my layer and adding the splatter where I see it needs to be added. Actually, I think that's pretty good. Maybe I'll do one more right on top of that stamp, and there we go. Now this layer I'm going to attach to a piece of Evening Evergreen. So I'll do that, and then I'll set it aside, and that layer will be ready for the front of my card. And you'll see how it's going to look when we get to that point. All right, so that's one piece done. Now, I want to do the same idea on a second piece of basic white. I'm going to use the same 3 stamps and the same ink, but this time I am going to start by creating a phrase using soft succulent, the color soft succulent. I have the Happy Birthday to You stamp, and I'm going to ink that up, and I'm going to stamp that in the middle. And then what I want to do is leave room around the outside, what I want to do is stamp around the outside, but I want to leave room to write a message. So I think actually what I might do, I'll use this one as well. So again, I'm going to use my Evening Evergreen and just stamp a little bit here and a little bit there, like so. And then I'll use my second stamp. And maybe one more, like so. Okay, so that still leaves me room for a small message for this special person. All right, I'm going to move these aside for a minute. We're going to come back to them though. And again, I am going to attach this Happy Birthday phrase layer to a layer of the Evening Evergreen. Okay, there we go. All right, now for the remaining layers of my card, I'm going to do something very similar. I have a few other pieces of basic white, and I'm going to use the same approach. I think though for the skinnier layers, I won't use the big stamp. I think what I'll do is just use the medium and the small. And again, I'm going to just randomly stamp. And then I'm going to use my Sahara sand and fill those white spaces like so. So for this layer, guess what? I'm going to attach it to a layer of Evening Evergreen. You can see the pattern is starting to develop, and it'll look really stunning on the card when we get to the point of creating the fun fold and the panel, and you'll see how it'll look. So I've got that layer done. Then I have another layer that I want to use on my card. On this one, because it's a bit wider, I'm going to use more of the whole image and then use again the Sahara sand as a filler. And yes, I'm going to layer it onto some Evening Evergreen. So all of these bits and pieces are coordinated by color and by design. I have another piece. Whoop, that's not good. And then this, and then again, my Sahara sand. Like so. And I'll layer that one to a layer of Evening Evergreen. And I have one more piece to do, but this one is a little bit different. I have a tiny piece of basic white, and I've got the hello phrase from the Forever Fern stamp set. And this time I'm going to use Evening Evergreen, and I'm going to stamp it down like so. And yes, I'm going to layer it to a piece of Evening Evergreen. So I will clean up a little bit here. I'll come back and then I'll show you how to create this fun fold and use all of these pieces to make an absolutely gorgeous card. Back in a moment. Before we move on to the next step, I thought it would be good just to show you all of the layers we've created one last time, and then I'll set them aside. But as you can see, this distinctive stamp set creates this sort of special texture look that makes cards absolutely gorgeous. If you want to see another project idea using the Forever Fern stamp set, why don't you check out this video next? All right, I'm going to move these aside, and now it's time to create the card base and the step up piece. So my card base is going to be soft succulent, and what I'm going to do is take this layer and I am going to use my Simply Scored. So I'm going to lay it along the 11-inch way, and I'm going to score it at 1/2. I'm going to score it at 2. I'm going to score it at 4, and then at 5.5. So again, 1/2, 2, 4, and 5.5 inches. Now I'm going to set this aside for a second, and I'm going to bring in a second piece of soft succulent, and I'm going to score it as well, and then I'll be done with my Simply Scored. So this piece I'm going to score at 1/2, and I'm going to score at 2. Again, it's at 1/2 and at 2. And these two pieces are what I'm going to use to create the fun fold technique. So you want to have your bone folder, and you want to fold all of these pieces in on the score line and then burnish them with your bone folder. Like so. So I've got this 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is actually what's going to create the step for my card. And I'll show you that in a second. Since I have my bone folder handy, let's do this second piece. So I'll again burnish it with my bone folder, like so. And I'll show you what we do with this piece and how we're going to connect it to this piece in a minute. But now what I want to do is I want to bring in these two of the larger decorated pieces. And this first piece, I'm going to adhere to my card base. And I'll do that using my Stampin' Seal. Like so. Then I'm going to turn it over, and on the back, I'm going to add the second layer that has the happy birthday phrase on it. Okay, so the card is starting to take shape. There we go. Now, I want to lay this piece down flat, this flap, and one of the pieces that we created is going to be adhered to this particular section, like so. Okay, I'm going to set this aside and then bring in this second piece, and I'm going to attach this layer to this section of the actual piece that's going to be the step. Okay, like that. Now this leaves this layer, and we're going to attach it again to the main card base like so. Okay, now what we want to do is bring in some tear and tape adhesive, and it's time to connect this piece to this piece. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to complete the main card base. I'm going to put a piece of tear and tape adhesive on this tiny tab or flap, and then I'm going to put another piece of tear and tape adhesive onto the smaller layer that we're going to attach. Okay, I'll take off the covering of the tear and tape adhesive for this piece first. Now, what you want to do is you want to be able to fold this up and have this adhere so that you have this bottom step. It might be better to, you want to line it up. It's hard to do when I'm videoing sort of down on top of it. So I'm going to just try and use my fingers to the best of my ability and stand this up and then attach it. Because you want this piece, you want this section of the card to stand up. Okay, I'm just going to attach it like that. There. Okay, so it does stand up like so. Now, the second piece, I am going to flatten this down this way, and I'm going to attach this piece like so that then you'll have your step card fun fold. So let me peel off. We've got that adhered, and then what you want to do is you want to adhere this top piece so that your card will stand up like that. Now it's going to need a little bit of a finesse here, but what we want to do is we want to now decorate this front panel piece by adding this element that we created. So let's go ahead and do that, and that will pretty much finish off the card. So to decorate this front panel, I have a piece of evening evergreen cardstock, and I'm going to attach a layer of the Tidings of Christmas paper. I love this paper because it's double-sided, which gives you, of course, twice the options. One side has seasonal designs, and the other side has all occasion basic designs. So you can use the side with the basic designs for any kind of projects you want, like today's fun fold card, or you can use them as accents on scrapbook pages, however you want. You don't have to use them only for Christmas, even though the name of the pack of paper is Tidings of Christmas. So I'm going to attach this to the front panel, centering it like so, and then just going to readjust it. That wasn't very centered. All right. And then I am going to add the hello first. There we go. I'm going to attach that down at the bottom, like so. And then I'm going to take this cute little element. I'm going to grab my mini Stampin' Dimensionals. I'll be back and we'll pop this up to complete the card. All right, I have my mini Stampin' Dimensionals, and I'm going to add just a couple and peel off the coating or the cover, and then I'm going to adhere it to the front of my pop-up card. So the nice part about this card is that it does fold and fit into a regular size envelope. Now, at the beginning of the video, I did promise that I would show you a second idea. So this idea used stamps, ink, and paper, and a little bit of designer series paper to create a birthday card idea. So then I thought to myself, what if I used designer series paper and not so much stamps and ink, and created a Christmas step front panel card? And so I did. I used my Peaceful Cabin bundle and my Peaceful Place designer series paper, and I created exactly the same step front panel card idea, but for a Christmas theme. I used some of the dies on the front, and then I used a phrase and some of the dies on the back to create a different idea, a Christmas idea. So I would love to know from you, which is your favorite? Is it the birthday card idea? Or is it the Christmas card idea? Regardless of your choice, if you want to learn how to make this at home, head on over to my blog, www.nutsaboutstamping.com. I will have a list of all of the supplies and the measurements to make this particular sample if you want to give it a try. And while you're on my blog, consider subscribing to my free newsletters. I send 2 newsletters a week. And right now I have a special series called the 12 Weeks of Christmas. One of my newsletters has featured 4 gorgeous Christmas cards. Now I'm featuring Christmas gifts, and next I'll be doing bags, tags, and wrap. You may not want to miss this series, and so I invite you to subscribe now. I'll leave a link in the description box below underneath my blog so that you can sign up for my free newsletters. I'm Terri. I'm nuts about stamping. I hope you'll try the step front panel card idea someday soon. Bye for now.